Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're part of our journey. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and get ready for a story that will leave you thinking. And if you love inspiring tales, a like goes a long way. Get out, you can't afford anything here anyway. The words cut through the showroom like shattered glass. The 10-year-old boy froze, his small hand still hovering mid-air where he'd almost touched the gleaming red Ferrari. Around him, the whispers began. The wealthy customers turned, some with curious glances, others with thin smirks of agreement. The dealership gleamed under crystal chandeliers, sunlight dancing across polished hoods worth more than most homes. The air smelled of leather and privilege. The boy stood out in his faded jeans and worn sneakers, suddenly aware of how his excitement had made him forget the unwritten rules about places like this. The manager, in his tailored suit and practiced smile, now loomed over him, all pretense of hospitality gone. "I just wanted to see it up close," the boy whispered, voice trembling. He backed away, eyes cast down as his dream crumbled. No one moved to help. No one spoke up, except for the man in the corner who had been so quiet until now. The man in sunglasses who'd been examining a vintage Aston Martin. As he removed his glasses, several people gasped. Robert Downey Jr. had seen everything. If this moment made you feel something, imagine what's coming next. Hit that like button and stay with us. Subscribe now. The boy's name was Alex. He'd saved his allowance for 3 bus tickets to visit this dealership, sketching the cars from memory in his notebook for months. His father worked double shifts as a mechanic, teaching Alex everything about engines on weekends. "Someday," his dad would say, hands black with grease, "you'll design these beauties yourself." That promise lived in Alex's heart, sustaining him through math homework and bullies who mocked his secondhand clothes. The manager, Richard Klein, had worked at Prestige Motors for 8 years. He measured success by the cost of watches on his customers' wrists. To him, the showroom wasn't a place of dreams, but a sanctuary of status that required protection. Children like Alex were not potential future customers, but contaminants, their fingerprints threats to the polished perfection he maintained. His commission structure rewarded efficiency. Time spent with non-buyers was profit lost. What neither knew was that Robert Downey Jr. had entered the dealership just 20 minutes earlier. After the success of his latest film, he'd come to purchase something special, something meaningful. The actor stood quietly observing, his presence commanding yet contained, watching the scene unfold with a familiar recognition in his eyes. "I didn't mean to," Alex started, but Richard cut him off with a dismissive wave. "This isn't a museum, kid. These cars are for people who can actually buy them." Richard's voice carried through the showroom, drawing more attention. A couple examining a Lamborghini exchanged uncomfortable glances but said nothing. A woman in designer clothing actually nodded in agreement. Alex's cheeks burned hot with shame. He clutched his small notebook tighter, the pages filled with meticulous drawings of engines and car designs. The dream that had seemed so possible in his bedroom now felt childish and impossible. The gleaming showroom suddenly felt like another world, one he'd foolishly thought he could enter. Richard placed a firm hand on Alex's shoulder, steering him toward the exit. "Let's go. I have actual customers to attend to." Each word was precise, designed to establish boundaries and hierarchy. To everyone watching, the message was clear. Dreams had price tags, and some people simply couldn't afford entry. Robert Downey Jr. set down the brochure he'd been holding. His movement was subtle, but something in his posture changed. Those familiar with his journey might have recognized something in his eyes, a reflection of his own past, his own struggles, his own redemption story beginning to echo in this mundane but meaningful moment. Alex tried to maintain his dignity as he walked toward the door, eyes fixed on his worn sneakers. The notebook slipped from his fingers, falling open on the polished floor. Pages of detailed sketches, exhaust systems, aerodynamic body designs, engine components, scattered across the marble. As he knelt to gather them, Richard sighed dramatically, checking his watch. "Hurry up. Some of us have sales to make," he said, loud enough for his wealthy prospects to hear his allegiance to their exclusive world. A wealthy couple nearby actually chuckled. A man in an expensive suit muttered something about parenting these days. The showroom had become a theater of casual cruelty, the kind that occurs when privilege feels threatened by even the most innocent intrusion. No one moved to help the boy collect his fallen dreams. The atmosphere shifted when Robert Downey Jr. removed his sunglasses completely. There was no dramatic announcement, no assistant rushing ahead to declare his presence. Just a quiet, deliberate movement as he stepped away from the Aston Martin. Those who recognized him fell silent, creating a ripple effect across the showroom. Phones began to emerge discreetly. The Iron Man actor, known as much for his spectacular career resurrection as his film roles, approached the scene with purpose. Richard, still focused on removing the boy, hadn't noticed. But Alex, gathering his scattered drawings, looked up to see the actor standing there, the same man whose own story of second chances had become legend. Things are about to take a turn. Don't miss what happens next. Subscribe, like our video, and keep watching. Those are some serious designs. Robert Downey Jr.'s voice was casual but commanding, instantly recognizable. The showroom fell silent. Richard froze, his hand still gripping Alex's shoulder. The actor knelt beside the boy, picking up one of the scattered drawings, a meticulously detailed engine schematic with handwritten notes about efficiency improvements. "You drew these?" Robert asked, examining the page with genuine interest. Alex nodded, speechless, recognition dawning in his eyes. Around them, the atmosphere transformed. Phones were raised discreetly. The wealthy customers who had been smirking moments before now strained to appear part of this unexpected celebrity encounter. "I did, sir," Alex finally managed, his voice small but steady. "I want to design cars someday. Engines that are better for the environment, but still..." He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Still make your heart race when you hear them," Robert finished, smiling as he gathered more of the fallen sketches. "I get that. The perfect balance of responsibility and passion." Richard Klein's demeanor underwent a spectacular transformation. His dismissive scowl melted into a practiced smile as he recognized the Hollywood star. "Mr. Downey, what an unexpected honor. I had no idea you were..." Robert didn't look up from the drawings. "These are incredible, especially coming from someone so young." He examined another page, a redesigned exhaust system with mathematical calculations in the margins. "How old are you, kid?" "10, sir. Call me Robert." He glanced up at the manager, his expression pleasant but eyes sharp with assessment. "I was just telling this young engineer about the Aston Martin. We were discussing thermodynamic efficiency in the newer models, weren't we?" Richard's face contorted with confusion before settling into a nervous smile. "Of course, Mr. Downey. I just didn't realize. That is, we have a policy about unaccompanied..." "About unaccompanied visionaries?" Robert interjected smoothly, standing up with Alex's notebook in hand. "Yeah, I get it. Disruptive thinking can be intimidating." He turned to Alex. "These are seriously good. That intake manifold redesign. Have you tested the airflow calculations?" Alex's eyes widened, astonished that someone, let alone Iron Man himself, understood his drawings. "Only on paper, sir, Robert. Dad says when I'm older we can maybe build a prototype." Customers began circling closer, their interest in the cars temporarily forgotten. Several had recognized Robert Downey Jr., and videos were discreetly being recorded. The showroom's atmosphere had completely transformed. "Your dad's a mechanic?" Robert asked, flipping through more pages of the notebook. Alex nodded. "He works at Jensen's Auto. Double shifts, so we can afford the tools at home." "Smart man," Robert replied, genuine appreciation in his voice. "Hands-on experience is invaluable." He turned to Richard, whose practiced smile was beginning to strain. "You know, I was actually banned from a place like this when I was younger. Different circumstances, admittedly. I was a bit of a mess back then." The honesty in his voice silenced the room. Even those who weren't fans knew pieces of Robert Downey Jr.'s story, his spectacular fall, and even more remarkable redemption. "But someone took a chance on me," he continued. "Second chances matter." His eyes locked with Richard's, his expression friendly but message unmistakable. "Sometimes the kid who doesn't belong ends up changing everything." Richard swallowed hard, suddenly understanding the precarious position he was in. The wealthy customers who had been smirking at Alex's humiliation minutes ago were now captivated by the boy's drawings and the actor's interest in them. "Mr. Klein here was just explaining the showroom policies," Robert continued, his tone conversational but weighted with meaning. "But I think he's reconsidering them, aren't you, Richard?" The actor's eyes held the manager's, not threatening but not yielding either. Richard nodded quickly, professional survival instincts kicking in. "Absolutely, Mr. Downey. We always welcome enthusiasts of all ages." A woman who had been examining a Porsche approached, designer handbag swinging from her wrist. "Those drawings are remarkable," she said to Alex, her interest suddenly genuine. "My husband's on the board at MIT. Engineering talent like this should be nurtured." The atmosphere continued its remarkable transformation. The same people who had silently endorsed Alex's humiliation now crowded around, eager to associate themselves with this new narrative of discovered talent and celebrity endorsement. Robert noticed Alex's discomfort with the sudden attention and placed a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Let's check out that Ferrari you were looking at," he said quietly. "I'm curious about your thoughts on its aerodynamics." As they walked toward the red Ferrari, Robert maintained a buffer between Alex and the now fawning crowd. Richard hurried ahead, suddenly eager to showcase the vehicle he'd previously guarded from the boy's touch. "The Ferrari Roma, our newest model," Richard announced, his sales persona fully engaged. "Twin turbocharged V8 engine, 612 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. Robert turned to Alex. "Impressive stats, but what would you improve?" Alex hesitated, looking between the actor and the manager. The showroom had gone quiet again, phones recording discreetly as the boy stood before his dream car with an A-list celebrity awaiting his expert opinion. "The cooling system," Alex finally said, his voice gaining confidence. "It's elegant, but could be more efficient. And the transmission, I've been working on a design that could reduce weight by almost 15%. Robert smiled, genuine admiration in his expression. "See, Richard? This is why you never judge a customer by their sneakers. Sometimes the best insights come from unexpected places." The tension in the room was building toward something inevitable, a confrontation between old money arrogance and a new vision of worth based on something deeper than wealth. Robert Downey Jr., whose own life had embodied transformation, stood at the center of this microcosm of redemption. This story is only getting deeper. What would you do in this situation? Comment below, and let's talk. Robert handed Alex's notebook to Richard. "Take a look at page 17. This kid has redesigned the cooling system you were just bragging about, and if I'm understanding his calculations correctly, his version would improve efficiency by nearly 12%. Richard reluctantly took the notebook, his eyes scanning the detailed drawings without really seeing them. His world had narrowed to damage control and opportunity assessment, how to salvage this situation and possibly leverage a celebrity encounter for future sales. "Very impressive," he said automatically, though his tone lacked conviction. "You're not looking," Robert said quietly. The simple observation silenced the room. "Really look at what this 10-year-old has created. Because I've consulted with some of the best automotive engineers in the world for film research, and these designs are extraordinary." With everyone watching, Richard had no choice. He actually focused on the drawings, and despite himself, his expression changed. This actually makes sense. The thermal distribution would be significantly more efficient." Genuine surprise colored his voice. A distinguished older gentleman stepped forward from the crowd. "May I?" he asked, gesturing toward the notebook. Richard handed it over, relieved to shift attention away from himself. "I'm Dr. Emerson," the man said, introducing himself to Alex. "I design propulsion systems for aerospace applications." He examined several pages, his eyebrows rising progressively. "Young man, these are remarkable, particularly your work on reducing friction coefficients. Who taught you these principles?" Alex swallowed, overwhelmed by the attention. "I figured most of it out from library books and YouTube videos. My dad helps explain the practical parts from his mechanic experience." The revelation that this child had essentially taught himself advanced engineering principles created a new wave of murmurs through the showroom. Robert watched, a small smile playing at his lips. "From books and videos," Robert repeated, turning to Richard, "while being told he doesn't belong in places like this." The statement hung in the air, not accusatory, but undeniably pointed. Richard's face flushed. "Mr. Downey, I hope you understand that in an establishment like this, we have certain protocols for determining human worth?" Robert interjected, his tone still conversational but with an edge that silenced the manager. "Yeah, I'm familiar with those protocols. Had them used against me plenty of times." He turned to address the gathered crowd, his charisma effortlessly commanding the room. "You know what's interesting about my career? Everyone focuses on the comeback, but they forget what made it possible. It wasn't wealth or connections." He placed a hand gently on Alex's shoulder. "It was people who saw potential when others saw problems. People who understood that value isn't always obvious at first glance." Dr. Emerson nodded, still examining Alex's notebook. "These designs show remarkable intuition about fluid dynamics. With proper mentoring, this young man could revolutionize engine efficiency." "Exactly," Robert said. "And how many other Alexis are out there being told they don't belong in spaces where they could change everything?" He looked directly at Richard. "How many geniuses are we losing because someone in a nice suit decides they don't look the part?" The wealthy customers shifted uncomfortably, some recognizing their own silent complicity in Alex's earlier humiliation. A woman in expensive jewelry leaned toward her husband, whispering, "Our foundation should have a scholarship for children like him." Robert returned his attention to Alex. "Tell me about your biggest design challenge right now. What problem are you trying to solve that's giving you trouble?" Alex's eyes lit up with passion that overcame his shyness. "Battery technology for electric vehicles. The current lithium-ion configurations are efficient but environmentally problematic in both production and disposal. I've been working on a hybrid system that could potentially use organic compounds to reduce the environmental impact." The technical language from the 10-year-old's mouth stunned the room. Robert smiled. "See? This is why I love kids. No artificial limitations, just pure possibility thinking." Dr. Emerson was nodding vigorously. "Young man, I'd like to give you my card. We have a youth mentorship program at our research facility that would be perfect for your talents." Richard watched as his exclusive showroom transformed into something entirely different. A space where a boy in worn sneakers was suddenly the center of positive attention, receiving business cards from wealthy customers and industry experts alike. His world of carefully maintained status boundaries was crumbling before his eyes. "Mr. Downey," he tried again, "I want to apologize for the misunderstanding. Of course, Prestige Motors encourages young enthusiasts. Perhaps we could offer Alex a special tour of our service department." Robert's smile remained friendly, but his eyes were resolute. "That's generous, Richard, but I think we're beyond that now." He turned to Alex. "What would actually help you with your designs? What do you need?" Alex thought for a moment, his young face serious. Access to real engine specifications. And maybe, he hesitated, then continued bravely, maybe sometimes being able to see the cars up close to study how different manufacturers solve design problems. Robert nodded, then addressed Richard directly. "So, here's what's going to happen. Prestige Motors is going to create a Young Engineers program, offering monthly workshops where kids interested in automotive design can examine these vehicles and learn from your technical staff." It wasn't a request. The customers were watching, several were recording. The showroom had become a stage, and Richard recognized the script he was expected to follow. "That's an excellent suggestion, Mr. Downey. We'd be honored to establish such a program." "Perfect," Robert said. "I'll have my foundation contact you about funding it properly. And Alex here will be your first official participant." The gathered crowd actually applauded. The wealthy woman who had mentioned her foundation approached. "We'd like to contribute to this program as well. Perhaps a scholarship component for promising students." What had begun as a moment of casual cruelty had transformed into something extraordinary. Richard, recognizing the PR opportunity emerging from his earlier mistake, stepped forward with a now genuine smile. "Prestige Motors is committed to nurturing the next generation of automotive innovation," he announced, his sales training kicking in to salvage the situation. "And we're honored that Mr. Downey has helped us recognize this opportunity." Robert watched the transformation with a knowing smile. He leaned down to Alex, speaking quietly while the adults discussed logistics. "That's how change happens. Sometimes it takes a little pressure from the right places. It's not over yet. The best part is coming. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it." Three weeks later, Alex stood in the same showroom, but everything had changed. A banner reading "Prestige Motors Young Engineers Program Inaugural Session" hung near the entrance. A dozen children from diverse backgrounds examined the showroom's vehicles, guided by technical staff who explained engine components and design philosophies. Parents watched proudly as their children asked questions that impressed even the veteran mechanics. Alex's father, still in his work clothes having come directly from his mechanic job, stood talking with Dr. Emerson and two university professors who had joined as program mentors. The grease under his fingernails contrasted with their polished appearances, but the respect in their conversation was mutual, all of them united by genuine passion for engineering and their children's futures. Richard Klein moved through the event with a transformed demeanor. The program had generated more positive press than any sales promotion in the dealership's history. 3 major automotive manufacturers had reached out about partnership opportunities, and the waiting list for the next session already had over 60 applicants. What had begun as a PR recovery had become something he genuinely believed in, especially after seeing the technical insights these young minds offered. "Alex, could you explain your cooling system concept to the group?" Richard called, gesturing to the open hood of the Ferrari Roma. Alex stepped forward confidently, no longer the intimidated boy from weeks ago. He pointed to various components, explaining his redesign in terms that blended technical precision with childlike enthusiasm. The other children gathered around, asking questions that showed they understood far more than anyone might have expected from kids their age. On a large screen at the back of the showroom, a video message from Robert Downey Jr. played for the attendees. He couldn't attend in person due to filming commitments, but his foundation had provided substantial funding for the program's expansion to other dealerships across the country. "What we're celebrating today isn't just about cars or engineering," Robert said in the video. "It's about creating spaces where potential isn't limited by perceptions, where the next generation of innovators can access the tools and mentorship they need, regardless of their background." The cameras that had once recorded Alex's humiliation now documented this transformation, not just of a dealership policy, but of a mindset. Local news stations interviewed parents and children, focusing on the program's mission to make automotive engineering accessible to all young enthusiasts. Richard, now fully embracing his role as the program's champion, spoke eloquently about the untapped potential in young minds and Prestige Motors' commitment to nurturing it. Dr. Emerson approached Alex as the boy finished his demonstration. "The Research Center's youth program starts next month. We've never had anyone as young as you, but the board unanimously approved your application after seeing your designs." Alex's father placed a proud hand on his son's shoulder, his eyes bright with emotion. "Thank you, Doctor. This means the world to him, to us both." "No thanks needed, Doctor," Emerson replied. "Minds like his are rare. All they need is opportunity." Across the showroom, the wealthy woman who had proposed the scholarship component was speaking with another family, a mother and daughter from a struggling neighborhood who'd learned about the program through community outreach. "Your daughter's electrical engineering questions are incredibly advanced. We'd like to offer her a place in our foundation's STEM mentorship program." As the event concluded, Richard approached Alex and his father. The manager's demeanor had permanently shifted from the dismissive person he'd been weeks before. The transformation seemed genuine, a man who had discovered purpose beyond sales targets. "I owe you both an apology," he said quietly. "Especially you, Alex. What I did that day, there's no excuse for it." Alex's father nodded, accepting the apology with dignity. "What matters is what happened afterward. This program will help a lot of kids." Richard handed Alex a small box. "The technical team and I put this together for you." Inside was a custom model of the Ferrari Roma with Alex's cooling system modifications incorporated into the design. "We ran computer simulations on your ideas. You were right. 12% efficiency improvement." Alex's face lit up as he examined the model. "You actually built it with my changes." "The prototype department is working on a real version now," Richard confirmed, "with proper attribution to you, of course." As the families departed, many children clutching new notebooks with the Young Engineers Program logo, the transformed showroom retained something it had never possessed before: the energy of possibility unrestricted by preconceptions. Outside, Alex and his father walked toward their old truck. A video of the original confrontation with Robert Downey Jr.'s intervention had gone viral, amassing millions of views. The story had resonated deeply. A Hollywood star using his influence not for personal gain, but to transform a moment of injustice into lasting opportunity. "You know what Mr. Downey told me that first day?" Alex said as they drove away from the dealership. "He said sometimes the people who change everything are the ones who don't seem to belong." His father smiled, glancing at the collection of business cards and opportunity letters that would reshape his son's future. He was right. and he made sure they learned that lesson. Behind them, the dealership's new banner fluttered in the afternoon breeze. Prestige Motors Young Engineers Program, where tomorrow's innovation begins today. The showroom that had once embodied exclusivity had become something far more valuable. A gateway to possibility for young dreamers from all backgrounds. Wow, what a story! If this moved you, imagine what else we have for you. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and let us know what you think.